All right, the latest book that I finished here today is called Drownproof by Andy Stumpf. This one just came out recently. I was pretty excited to read it. So Drownproof, 8 life lessons to keep your head above water. I guess real quick before I get into the review, I'll talk a little bit about who Andy Stumpf is, because I'm sure there's people that are going to be watching this that don't know who he is. But he's a former Navy SEAL with a 17-year career, including time on SEAL Team 6. He's also a public speaker, podcast host, the Cleared Hot podcast, and an entrepreneur. So if you're not familiar, Team 6 is the elite of the elite inside of the Navy when it comes to the SEALs. See, like it's the best of the best, right? For a long time it wasn't even acknowledged, and even to this day they still call it the Special Naval Warfare Development Group, I believe, or DevGRU for short. But it's kind of colloquially known as Team 6, and he served on that team. So he's got a lot of clout. This guy's earned his way. He earned his keep. There's a ton of merit, basically. And so people like listening to him. I've heard him on several podcasts before. I mean, he's been on Rogan. He's got his own podcast. I'm sure he's been doing a lot recently for his book. So wanted to do a review here today. I have one big critique of this book, and I will get into that towards the end, which I'm hesitant to do because I love these types of authors, but it's something that just I do struggle with. So anyways, what the book is, it's his 8, he gives you, there are chapters that he goes through, and it's his 8 life lessons that he learned throughout his military career. It's not strictly based on his military career. Like, he goes into some of the things that he's done since. Like, he's big into, or not now, I think he was, but he's big into skydiving professionally, like with wingsuits. He's big into jiu-jitsu. He does business, and he's into the business world now. So it's a lot of his life lessons that he gives you throughout the book. And it's definitely more of a self-help book, which I'll kind of get into my concerns with that here in a little bit. But I wrote down 3 quotes that I really liked, and I wanted to go through them here because I hope it'll give you an idea of more about the book. So first one I wrote down, and this is from his book, is what you allow in your presence is your standard. Initially, I exclusively used this as an outward-facing tool because this is what I thought it was intended for. I used it as a reminder that if I did not want to be considered subpar, then I had better not allow subpar behavior from those around me. The impact and effectiveness were immediate, but over time I realized that if you truly want to weaponize this concept, you will orient it internally. I loved that. There's so much to unpack there because I think the initial part is totally true. So like the external, what you allow in your presence is your standard. I think that's totally true of the people and the environment that you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with subpar humans or people that do not meet your standard, including your friends and family, then effectively that becomes your standard, right? I mean, and I see this all the time, including myself when I was younger. I see this with friends and people that I know, is they aspire to be something that they don't surround themselves with, and no matter what, they're gonna drag you down. And the biggest way is just time. You do not have time to spend with people who are not aligned with you on your goals. You just simply don't. Especially as you get older, you have a family, it doesn't work that way. So I loved that. And then he kind of turns it inward. The way I interpreted that when he talks about if you truly want to weaponize this concept, you'll orient it internally. For me, that's your own thoughts. It's your self-talk, right? The way you talk about yourself. What is your standard? What do you allow for yourself? So you got the people that you surround yourself with, the environment that you're in, but it's also what are the things that you tell yourself? You say you want to be, or I say I want to be about X thing or something that I want to go do and accomplish, but do my actions align with that? And ultimately, that's what it all comes down to is, a character in a lot of ways is do your actions align with your words? So really liked that. Second one I wrote down here was he was talking about organizations. So basically leadership. He says, when you have less buy-in, you have to be more creative with your approach. Leadership is not about finding or creating the perfect team, which is impossible, and then accomplishing your goal. It is about taking the team and tools that you do have and finding your way to success. It takes time and effort. It takes communication and a willingness to understand what motivates the people who work for you. So I like this in a lot of ways. He's talking about, in his experience, and I've found this too, but just like in all walks of life, including the military, including in the SEAL teams, there are bad leaders and good leaders. And some SEAL team leaders are successful in spite of their leadership. And some are really good leaders, right? You see this all over the place. But for why this one really hit home with me is most leaders are middle managers, right? Very few of us are the CEOs at the top. And I really happen to think that the middle managers are kind of what make businesses go. They're the ones that are out there in the field executing. You think about like, working with salespeople, coaching, teaching, developing. It's the middle managers. And oftentimes the vision up top, it doesn't kind of trickle all the way down because the CEO or the president is not very involved, right? You don't have a lot, in my opinion, great leaders at the top of businesses, but you often have great leaders in the middle of the business. And your job is to take the tools that you have and make the best of it. And it's easy a lot of times as a leader to kind of get wrapped up in the ideology of, well, if I had better X or better Y, or if I had better people. It's really not about that. It's about your team. It's about taking them and making the best that you can in your situation, right? He gives an example at Black Rifle Coffee Company because he's involved with them and they opened up a coffee shop. And his point was basically like, look, for the most part, this is a transient job. People come here because they want to work here part-time and then go on to something else. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that these are going to be the future Navy SEALs of the world. Right? And that's the point, right? Is do the best with what you can. So I loved that. Third one that I wrote down, and this is my favorite, discipline is the strongest form of self-love. That hit really hard. Sorry, I'll continue with the quote. It's ignoring something that you want right now for something better later on. Discipline reveals the commitment you have to your dreams, especially on days where you don't want to. The future you is depending on the current you to keep the promises you made to yourself yesterday. I love that. To me, discipline equals freedom. And that's the Jocko Willink quote. It really is the strongest form of self-love because it's about, like he says, it's you kind of hear the age-old quote is what do you do behind closed doors? That helps shape your character. To me, it's about, are you willing to do the things that you don't want to do, but you know you should or need to do? And I see this in all walks of life. Especially at the leadership level, it comes into play when it's like, are you willing to tell someone what they need to hear versus what they want to hear? It's just about doing things that are uncomfortable but are necessary. And if I had to kind of sum up leadership in general, it might just be that is that, are you willing to take someone to a place that they need to go, tell them the things they need to hear versus what they want to hear? It's like that old school coaching mentality that's really lost in today's world. So loved those three quotes. I hope that you guys enjoyed them as well. On the book itself, I like the book. I love these kinds of books. These military books from former operators, it's what got me into reading, really. Lone Survivor, American Sniper, The Red Circle, Fearless, The Reaper. I love those books. But with him and a lot of the newer books from these guys, he even says in the beginning, like, hey, this isn't a Bud's book. This isn't a war story book. If you want that, go elsewhere. And I wish it was. He could have done all these life lessons inside of his own memoir. I find that to be a lot more of an interesting read, more of a fun read. It's more engaging, and I take away more from those. Plus, it's also just, I do think of these people as extraordinary. And I know that's hard for people like him to hear and he talks about this in the book as well, is, hey, we're just ordinary guys that happen to be in a field that's a kind of extraordinary thing. And I do think that it's an absolutely special human being that's willing to do what these guys are willing to do. And I want to read about that. I want to know how they grew up. I want to know what their lessons were. What did they know that I didn't know when they were younger? That's the things that I love about these books. And so I wish it was his memoir. I wish these guys, and it's not just Andy, but I wish they would embrace that more. So that's my critique. That being said, it's still a great book. It's just that it's more in the self-help instead of the memoir. And so I wish it was more like the biography of Andy. So anyways, that's Drownproof by Andy Stumpf. Just came out recently. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Thanks.